What is going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Hollywood Already Did It presents a history of sitcoms through WandaVision, the seventh episode. As always, I am your host, Blake Schultz. With me today is Jamie Jirach
Hello.
and Terrence Tatum.
Hello, everyone.
And this was the seventh episode, right? I'm not. Yeah,
That is correct.
Seven
Yeah,
of
that
nine.
sounds correct.
Yes.
We're breaking the fourth wall, the aptly titled episode. Another great introduction, a lot of twists, a lot of turns, a lot of reveals. We didn't quite get the big one that I think everyone thought we were, but to that I say, manage your expectations.
I feel like everyone needs to do that. Yes.
We're saving the heavy hitter. Because look, here's the thing with these. It's fun. Ooh, the X-Men, ooh, Fantastic Four. I get it. These are IPs that they can use to get you back in a theater when it's safe. These are not characters you put at the end of WandaVision. These are characters you either go subscribe to Disney Plus for the X-Men show or come and see the X-Men. You don't tuck them away when no money is to be made. You don't buy a studio to lose money.
Yeah.
But that's not what we're here to talk about, guys. We're here to talk about this great episode, some history of in-camera mockumentaries, really. Modern Family, The Office, Parks and Rec. There's a little happy endings in here. Other 2010s. I guess thousands, tens were blending now. Although WandaVision 10 was trending on Twitter before this episode, so it is a 2010s one.
I think it's safe to call this 2010.
I think this is the 2010s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think we just have to accept that we skipped the 90s. It's just what happened.
Yeah. Although I have a theory on that now that we'll get to. So what do we think, guys? Episode 7, Breaking the Fourth Wall. We are officially thrust into millennial nostalgia. These are the shows that have plagued dating apps for years. Quotes on Twitter, Dwight and Jim references. You can't get away from it.
It's funny because like I lived on the last decade plus of just watching Modern Family. Like it was one of my favorite sitcoms to watch. Blackish is probably up there too. So it's kind of like these type of shows are like my sweet spot, my bread and butter now. So seeing this show sort of play in that wall, I'm like, oh, I know this. This feels like home. I know this part pretty well. It's weird though. They don't live there that long in the show with the sitcom part of this. They kind of get in. It's a setup piece and then they move on. But I really still dug just spending even a little time because it's the best way to sort of blend where the MCU is with wherever they were coming from with the sitcoms. It's the easiest way to sort of like, all right, now this is existing in the same world. Even though we're still doing some weird stuff with these talking to the camera and breaking the fourth wall, it still is the closest to sort of merge those worlds so that when things probably all hell breaks loose these next 2 episodes, we now are like, all right, we're on even footing.
I loved it because I love mockumentary comedy, and it's not, and that goes way back. That started for me in 1999 when Drop Dead Gorgeous was released, and ever since that movie, mockumentary has been one of my favorite, if not my favorite style of comedy. In fact, in college, in the class we were in together, Blake, my first ever feature film that I wrote was a mockumentary. I think it's just so right for comedy. And I especially, the best joke to me is in the very beginning when she's like, who hasn't expanded the border of their reality? And they cut to all the sword people like running around in terror. That kind of shit is my bread and butter. I think that stuff is so funny, and we got so many good jokes, like Vision hitting the boom mic, and the moment where it cuts to Agnes and she says, "I've been a kid once." That to me is perfect comedy. But weirdly, despite that, I've not seen a lot of Modern Family. However, in the past couple days, I did watch the entire first season of that. So I did enjoy getting to say oh wow, Elizabeth Olsen really channeled Julie Bowen. She
100%.
did such a good job channeling. And Julie Bowen actually took to Instagram and did a post about it and was like, and yeah, it happened to air the 1-year anniversary when they wrapped filming Modern Family. So so she like kind of celebrated that fact together. And I thought that was really cool to see, because we haven't seen a lot of the people from the sitcoms that they've paid homage to like say things. So it was neat to see Julie Bowen like
I mean, obviously the
get
first
really
couple,
excited about it.
those folks may not be around anymore, but yeah, this is the first time where they're actively still around and still active. Like that Modern Family just ended, so those folks are still in the business, so they probably are actively watching it. It's the same Disney umbrella with ABC and stuff, so they're kind of like, all right, I'm aware of this. I know what this is. So yeah, that is pretty cool that she actually spoke out.
It's interesting as we creep closer and closer to like our age. Because I feel like we hit the early thousands, blended with some 90s, and that's when I was all like, oh my God, we're here. We're doing all the shows I know and grew up with, the things that influenced me. Modern Family is, it just ended. We're right on the heels of it. So seeing something reference something that wrapped up almost a year ago to the day. I think it was in April when they premiered the last one. It was a few weeks into the pandemic. It has this very strange, like, it's not quite nostalgia, and yet at the same time, there's so much nostalgia in it, because you can't talk about any of these mockumentaries without going all the way back to the 90s, as Jamie brought up. These did start in feature films, Best in Show, all of the
Spinal Tap. That was it.
Yeah. So it's all there. The British Office, The Office, Parks and Rec, into Modern Family. These have all been huge, successful shows that brought us back. But for me, this episode, I really liked all of the reveals. I liked all of the narrative stuff we got. I loved Darcy in the circus. I liked Vision figuring it out. I think for a mockumentary episode, there were some beats we didn't quite connect with. Part of that tool is the creative zoom ins and outs, the getting up close to Jim at a right moment or zooming out to reveal something. And I felt in this episode, there was a lot of arbitrary zooming in and out that I was very aware of, and was like, oh, it feels like we're just doing this without fully grasping
how that works.
Yeah.
Because the camera in those mockumentaries acts as another
character.
It is. It acts as another character. It is. I mean, it sounds ridiculous and on the nose, but that's what it is. And so there were some times when I was like, oh, they're forcing this. This doesn't feel that natural. But some of it did work, because I think Elizabeth Olsen's read of the Mondays, am I right? That was a perfect zoom in. That was they got it on that one. But then there were a couple other ones like, oh, they're not quite getting how that works.
It almost felt like a film student doing it, where I was like, somebody's just being like, you got to throw in some zooms.
I really did love though the Darcy and Vision meeting each other, and there was that like, he was like, did one of these, like, we met, and the way that they kind of filmed that moment really I felt it in that second when he's like walking up to her. I think that was my favorite in terms of visually how they captured that style.
That had a very Office, Modern Family, awkward kind of comedy, that almost like cringy humor, I guess you would call it, that we haven't seen, of like, oh, these people are just sort of trying to interact.
Yeah, like I've seen a lot of that. Modern Family does a lot when you're like, oh, they're doing something at the mall where they don't quite belong. I think those shows, this show and the last decade shows, are shows where we get outside of the house a lot. Most of the time, these family shows over the last couple of decades no longer spend the majority of their time, because they're not on a set anymore. So they're not spending the majority of their time just in the living room or in the kitchen or in the dining room. So you start doing those weird offs where you're like, oh, this is a completely different spot. I've never seen this before. And they're doing something where it's like, I don't belong in this world. But we're taking that family beat and putting this in some weird aspect that we normally don't have them in.
And where the episode really thrived for me was towards the end. These horror beats the show keeps doing. Where are the kids? We're finally in Agatha's house. We're about to figure out her big spoiler reveal that she's also the magic wielding Agatha. We get an amazing bop that's going to be in clubs for a while.
Oh my God. I just ordered an Agatha All Along shirt last night.
Oh, I need to get on that.
My wardrobe is now like half WandaVision.
You can't go wrong.
Shout out to Margie for the shirt I'm wearing. The Agatha All Along song is what a game changer. And a big thing for me is because, like, you're saying that these last two episodes were like, it's your time and it's your generation, and it should be mine too, because we're the same age. But these last 2 weeks were actually The Office I've seen 10 gazillion times. I rewatched the whole thing last month. But Modern Family I'm not so familiar with, and Malcolm in the Middle I'm not so familiar with. I grew up watching old sitcoms. The earlier episodes I actually knew better. But then they surprised us because they threw it back again at the end, and they gave us kind of an Addams Family Munsters vibe with Agatha all along.
Yeah, I think, and we'll get into my big, like, what I think is they're going to do next. But my theory is that next week is either going to be a full on prequel episode in the
so, too.
40s or 50s, or we're going to style it up like another classic sitcom trope and get some weird clip show episode.
Yeah, it's going to be either a flashback or so, but they're basically going to explain to us how we got to this point, how everything started.
I think will be great in the context of WandaVision, but I hate those episodes in sitcoms, and I'm so glad they don't really do them anymore. Because I just watched the Office episode a couple weeks ago where I think it's like season 6 maybe, and they have like somebody come in to like assess because they just got bought by Sabre, and so but the thing is, like, the tiny parts that are new are relevant to the plot, so you have to sit through them. But I just binged the whole show in 2 weeks, so I've seen all these clips now.
It's funny, those shows typically happen around the 5-year, 6-year mark for audiences that have not been on the whole time. So, all right, cool, this is our recap episode to sort of catch you up. But if you watch them in a binge mode, you're like, I literally have just seen all.
Yes. Well, when that was invented, because Friends is like the king of doing that.
Yeah.
That binging wasn't a thing. Even like DVDs weren't as much. Like, I started buying TV DVDs eventually, but now those episodes are very tedious. But they made sense at the time.
I think that's why they don't do them as much anymore. The medium has changed a lot. And speaking of the medium changing a lot, we are now in the 2010s. TV has changed from when Malcolm in the Middle aired and we skipped the 90s in WandaVision. We are streaming more than ever before. We're done with the 24 episode mark. That now feels long. We're in an 8 episode. We're not really looking for ad space anymore. We are looking for how to get you to subscribe to Hulu, Netflix, Amazon Prime. Back when there were only 3, before everybody and their mom had a streaming service to offer you. We're rebooting everything for everywhere. You can't get away from it. But in it came Modern Family. In a time where the sitcom was dying, network television was at an all-time low. You had a few hits with How I Met Your Mother, but a lot of these classic ones in the mid-thousands to early 10s, even by the time The Office and Parks and Rec winded down, these were getting 2 million viewers a night. We were seeing a huge depreciation even amongst giant shows. In comes Modern Family, a show that now is on Peacock and Hulu, and the reasons for this are fascinating.
Oh, that's a nuts deal that they've raised.
Oh, I was really curious about this, so please tell me. Because my Jake was like, "Why is Modern Family on Peacock? It's an ABC show," and I was like, "I don't know, but it's getting me to watch it." So, what's that deal?
All right, Terrence, you're gonna have to help me fill in some of these gaps because it is wonky and crazy.
Yeah.
So this was a show that they wrote, they produced, they wanted to get made. They believed in it so strongly and they went everywhere. NBC Universal originally went, we've got 3 mockumentaries already. We'll see you later. We've got The Office. We got Parks and Rec. We don't need it. And they brought it to Fox, who didn't want to do it. Then they brought it everywhere until ABC finally was like, we'll give it a try. In that, they then had to have ABC distribute, but a production company had to do it. Enter Fox. This was back when Hulu was a subsidiary of NBC Universal, 20th Century Fox, and ABC. Everybody had equal shares in this company. When they started Hulu, it was an initiative of all of the television companies to get more people watching anything. This was which has now ruined them, except for Disney, who's winning the game. A lot of the show's advertising space then came from NBC when it got on NBC for syndication. The majority of the money the show was making was through syndication on NBC. Hence, almost every single television network has a stake in Modern Family, which is why it is the first, if not only, show to appear brand new on Peacock while it's on Hulu, where it'll stay. This is now a Disney-owned property. I wouldn't be surprised if one day it's on Disney Plus also.
I'll say they'll probably eventually get there, yeah.
Interesting.
20th Century Fox's banner plays at the end of every episode. and yet here it is on NBC's streaming service.
So yeah, the biggest thing is the syndication deal that Modern Family has is with NBC Universal, because that's how it's on USA. USA is an NBC product. USA. Yeah, USA is an NBC product. So they're like, well, technically, we already own the rights to this, so we're going to put this on Peacock too. And they're like, well, shit. All right, well, then there you go. And that's how Modern Family sort of literally ends up anywhere. Like I looked up on Roku and I'm like, oh, this is everywhere. Everywhere.
Wow. And it's funny because I feel like Modern Family wasn't streaming anywhere for a while, which is why I had never seen it. And I didn't even realize you said it was on Hulu. I didn't know that. I literally didn't realize it was available to me until Peacock got it. So that's very interesting. I hope that the listeners are as thrilled as I am to learn this new information.
Oh, I've got Modern Family information for days. I've been re-binging it and researching this whole time. We spoke a little bit about research 2 episodes ago. This was another show, a famous pilot that they brought everywhere. They showed it to a research screening, and it did some of the best scores that the company had ever seen. This was an immediate 2-series order based off of just the response to this pilot. People fell in love with the characters, which we hadn't really seen in a while. Sitcoms were getting very story heavy, blending drama, blending heavier storylines. This brought back characters you could attach to that were in silly antics. If you really watch season 1, it's a lot of traditional sitcom. Oh, we misunderstood each other. I heard you say something on a phone, but you didn't mean it. We're doing a lot of traditional Vaudeland storylines at the top here, almost returning to form. It blew up from that. They then showed it to investors. They were so confident. The investors gave them a bunch of money. If you're wondering why they had guest stars on guest stars, that most shows wouldn't get till season 4, it's not just that sweet Disney money. It was a smash before it even came to air. Then it came to air and it exploded. The sitcom was back in a time when everyone was streaming and making super expensive shows. They proved that you could take mostly unknown actors, put them in a setting, reconnect with people. You have new families. You quite literally have modern families. LGBTQIA couples with blended families and adoption. You have older people marrying younger people. You have elements of class system in it, people with varying degrees of kids. All the kids are acting different. It felt more real. It felt like Spider-Man Homecoming's high school versus Sam Raimi's Spider-Man's high school.
Yeah, that's a good comparison. It's it's interesting that you bring that up because I realized watching it that I have a lot of opinions about the comedy, which I think we'll get to later. But in terms of the family dynamic, it is kind of the first time that I really felt represented. In terms of, because my family has a habit of divorcing and remarrying, and watching Jay, Ed O'Neill's character, is so much my first stepfather, the stepfather I grew up with. I mean, I always said that my stepdad was like a Red Foreman, but watching Modern Family, I'm like, oh, maybe he's more of a Jay. He's like a combo. But some of the things that man says, and his like just the way that sometimes he struggles with a lot of things, I'm like, whoa, I grew up with that man.
It's fascinating because that's a lot of adults in that age group now. Like people's parents are like, I don't quite understand what all you kids are talking about. Like I don't get the gender fluidity. I don't get like you're raising an Asian baby. I don't understand that. But I'm willing to give it a shot. I'm probably going to say some things that are very foul.
Yeah, he's my ex stepdad, but we still keep in touch. And like I came out as bi, and he's like, he accepted it, But like I can tell it's like I can see his like wheels turning in his head.
Like yeah.
Like okay, just don't give me the details.
Well, it's an interesting thing because so much of the problematic comedy in the show, I feel like tries to come from a place of they're old fashioned and they're learning, and sometimes they hit that and other times they don't.
They do not.
There's a whole joke with the Cameron and Mitchell and their daughter Lily, and it's in season 4, so we've come now a ways. And they reference she's doing something for school and she wants to get going. And they're like, sometimes we forget to factor in that she's Asian. And it's like, what is this? This is bad parenting. Like,
Very similarly, in the first season, because again, I've really only seen the first season this week. Jay is always refers is like my little fortune cookie, or
Or
like
he
my
like
little
the very
pot
first episode, he calls her a pot
the
sticker, and I was like, whoa, wait, what?
Exactly. And the fact that Cam and Mitchell don't like say anything, and there's a lot of that like underlining kind of racial stuff, like with Gloria. Sometimes it works the way that they like the Colombian culture, but a lot of times it's really I don't know. I tried to look up what Colombian people think of this show, and I couldn't find much.
I was going to say it's weird because they're even in the same scene. Sometimes you're like, okay, that joke worked because you weren't as on the nose, but then the pot sticker, like the pilot happens when they first learn about Lily and they show him to the family, and the dad, the younger dad, like Gloria, I'm not Gloria, to with the three kids, he says, "You named her Lily. Isn't that going to be hard for her to say?" It's a super smart joke. It's very like, all right, that's close, but that's a joke. But then they follow it up with Jay saying the pot stickers, like, you can't do both. That line is
that's
rough.
what it is they double down on it,
right?
And the thing about like the Lily joke is like that is pretty funny, but also dicey. But the thing about the pot sticker, and then later again, Fortune Cookie came a couple episodes later, that bothers me is that it wasn't treated as anything wrong. It was just treated like Grandpa's got a nickname and it's a little racist. Cute. And that's my problem a little bit with this first season, and I think with comedy in general 10 years ago. And I think another example of that is Cam. I think that Eric Stonestreet is great in this role. He's very funny. He makes me laugh. He's adorable. But as a queer person who spends a lot of time with queer people, it's very obvious to me that Jesse Tyler Ferguson is actually queer in real life and Eric Stonestreet is not. And I don't dislike Eric Stonestreet's portrayal. I think it's funny and it's good, but I think that when this show came out, they had this idea that they were trying to be inclusive and they were trying to make inclusivity make more sense to people who weren't used to it. Like, it's a good bridge. It's a like I said, like, I have a J in my family. I understand that people are like this, and 10 years ago it made sense to kind of use a show like this to help people along. But I think that is one of the reasons why shows from like 10 years ago age more poorly than shows any other time.
Well, Jamie, pull out your bingo card because it's time to talk about the Power Rangers then. Because what you're hitting on is exactly what I think we've talked about with that show of like the Black Ranger's black, the Pink Ranger's girl, the Asian is the Yellow Ranger. And it's easy to go, well, this is a more diverse show than Friends or Seinfeld. So it's a 1-to-1, but like progress is messy because you're also getting into that very weird, like, diversity behind the camera and diversity on the show of you've got a lot of people with great intentions. We're going to make some blended families. We're going to make some LGBTQIA folks in there. We're going to get diversity. We're going to do this. And it's all going to be written through the lens of two white men.
Yeah.
And I think when you do that, it's easy to look back and go, wow, without this show, we probably wouldn't have as much representation as we do now. However, this show is not perfect. And it's a very, it's very weird because it's like The Office. People are always like, well, The Office now. And I'm like, yes, but if we hadn't done it this way, we also wouldn't know to not do it this way.
Yeah. I think anytime you have a show that runs for 10 plus years, 11 years, halfway through that, they're going to be fighting against time. They're like, oh yeah, you're no longer the relevant one in the room or the one that's progressing or doing things ahead of time. I think if this show came out today, we would very much have an actual gay person playing Eric Stonestreet. Like, there would be two people who are gay on that. And you probably would also have in this blended family an African American. You probably have an African American person, or somebody in that family as a whole. You would probably have on the queer, like lesbian side or queer side of it. It would be just a little bit mixed, but I also think you would need to have people in the writing room and the directing room.
I looked on IMDb and there were some gay people. There weren't a lot of people of color. I think maybe like one woman that I noticed. It wasn't very diverse, but it was more diverse than some shows.
Correct.
But it is still mainly like run by like a white dude. But I would also like to say that I have no problem with straight men or women playing gay roles. It just depends. Like they're like a good example is like Will and Grace. Will, why is that actor's name escaping me right now? He's not gay, and it's fine in real life because he doesn't he's not playing a flamboyant
But
character.
he's not. I say he's
Sean
not
Hayes.
overtly super.
Exactly.
Super
like Sean Hayes
flamboyant.
is like, but the thing about Sean Hayes is he wasn't out for a lot of the show either, so
Right.
that's a whole
Right.
different thing. But like I think it all comes back to like the current James Corden thing, where it's like James Corden in The Prom is so over the top, stereotype, ridiculous gay that it's like hard to watch. And if like a gay man had been doing that, it'd be easier. I really do think it depends on the role, and I do think, like I said, I don't think that Eric Stone should not have played that part, but it is a little more noticeable.
He's great
now.
in it.
He is. He really
but
is.
I just think now,
Mm.
in today's term, he wouldn't have gotten. I think we should probably have given that to somebody who
Exactly.
actually was.
And
Not
a
saying
show
that
like
he
that.
should have definitely had it then because he nailed it.
And again, like it shouldn't. I do think that sometimes straight people play. I actually think that it's harder in comedy. I think that if we're getting like sexy lesbian Kate Winslet in a period drama, great. But if we're getting like somebody in a comedy where it's like over the top anyway, it feels a lot of the times like they're making fun.
Well,
and that's not the case in Modern Family, but it is the case in a lot of things.
And that's I think the trick with comedy is that it invites mockery and making fun, and then often they forget to do the other side of it. Like The Office only works because like people think Michael's an idiot. Like if he's not good at his job and he shouldn't be there, and it's talked about and it's mentioned, and part of the other meta joke then is once you work in an office, you're like, oh yeah, these people are here and HR is worthless. Like this does happen this way. Part of it's why like you then get into smarter shows like Parks and Rec, where it's like, oh, we're never really punching down at anybody. They've found other places to make the comedy, and Modern Family kind of does both.
Yeah.
It's just that every now and then you're like, oh guys, like we can't do
I mean, sometimes it's literally just being a product of the time. I also really think that comedies that are these single camera comedies, the shelf life can sometimes be a little shorter because they're not always following the rules of comedy, the rules of triplets, where you're like that normally is not the structure that works in those type of comedies. They're doing things a little bit differently. Whereas you're doing a live action comedy where you're doing the triplets, you're in a live audience, you're telling people sort of when to laugh. You're going to always sort of know the tried and true of this is going to always be funny. These things always work. Whereas sometimes the single camera stuff, one, becomes subjective, but two, is dated to the time that whenever it sort of comes around. So since they're not hitting the rules of comedy, it's more of like, do you enjoy this? Was this working at the time, or were you watching this at the time that this actually existed? And that's where some things some things don't hold up as well as they did when they first came out.
I agree, and I think specifically, like if we really look at 10 years ago, I think that a big thing about that time period is that it's when we the collective we started trying to be more inclusive and doing things, but we took it too far. And I'm thinking back, I was performing a lot of comedy 10 years ago. I was doing stand-up, I was doing improv, and I look back and I am so grateful there are no video evidence of the things I did and said. My college improv team, the amount of rape jokes we told. I used to host shows as Woody Allen, and my theater used to do a midnight show that was like supposed to be as gross and awful as possible. I remember my friend hosted a show as Amy Winehouse the day Amy Winehouse died, and I encouraged this. I literally was like, oh, that's gonna be hilarious to do that. And there was just like no sensitivity, and there was no, it was like at that point it was like everything's on the table now, we can do whatever we want. And I at the time I was 20, but at the time I was like, anything's funny, everything's on the, we can do whatever we want. And that's what comedy was I think then.
Yeah,
and
there
that's
was-
how we get like blackface in 30 Rock.
I was
which
say that. I was literally
like-
about to say 30 Rock is the case of that.
like,
Yeah.
Well,
and
that's
30
the-
Rock is a brilliant show. I
It is.
love 30 Rock, but the amount of things that are very poorly aged in that show are because it came of that time. It started in I think 2008. And it was like a time where it really felt like we can get away with anything because we are inclusive. So that means we can make fun of everyone. When no, because that's just not
Scrubs
the
is on that
reality.
list.
I was
Scrubs
about
on
to
that
bring
list
up
too.
Scrubs. There's a lot of Scrubs stuff where you're like, oh, they had Donald Faison, and therefore we're like, we can make every black joke we want.
Exactly.
And it's like, well, no, but
Like, hold
also
on.
like it's also, you bring up a good point that I think 10 years ago, the mantra really was either we can say anything or we can't say anything. Like we had a very like all or nothing concept in society. And I think that's in a weird way where you have to get to start going, ooh, hold on. Like, well, wait a minute. We actually have to figure out how to do this. And it's not that you can't say anything. It's that if you're going to say it, you need to say it right. I remember when I was doing UCB improv classes, this came up a lot. We had it was so bad that I even laughed at it, but we had a scene. It was a female, it was a woman teacher and a lot of girls in the class. And we did a scene where if you know improv, they're, say a word, and we're going to do a little monologue and do a scene. And somebody made a joke about like, I hate gyms that have treadmills in the windows because I run and my boobs bounce up and down and then men stop and stare. It's awful. Like, why would you design it this way? So a guy started a scene with a girl and just said, oh, I like the way your tits bounce. And I knew it was inappropriate and I knew it was bad and everyone's face. And I laughed so hard just because I was like, this guy, it couldn't be more tone deaf. Like everyone laugh at the idiot with me.
Yeah.
And of course, no one did. And it took me like 2 minutes to realize like, oh, I'm just cackling in the back of this room by myself. And then we had a conversation of like, look, you can do that, but the scene needs to be about why this guy's an idiot and not him just like going up and being like,
smart
hey,
ways
the
to get it.
gams.
Right. It's like there's smart ways to get to some of these jokes. You just have to, you can't take the easy route to get to those punches.
And the thing about that I think I would say that a lot of horrible things happened in 2016, but I think that with like the Me Too movement and everything, one thing is that we have found a better balance of what's appropriate in comedy and how we can do it. And I think that because of that, there are a lot of comedians or like everyone's so PC, we can't do what we want anymore. And it's really like, no, dude, you just were never really funny. You were leaning on these crutches that were wrong. And if you can't adjust to what is right, and we have gotten, I mean, literally Barb and Star Go to Vista Del Mar is one of the funniest effing movies I've seen in years. And comedy right now, it's like we've gotten to a point finally where we understand what is we're not perfect. It's not a perfect system yet.
Nobody's
but
gonna be
it's a lot better than it was 10 years ago.
Yeah.
It's one of my favorite interviews, and I know he has his own problems. I know Jerry Seinfeld's also not a saint, and there's some things in there with people he's dated, but he did a sit down with Ricky Gervais, Chris Rock, and Louis C.K. And in this sit down, Chris Rock starts saying the N-word, Louis starts saying it, and Jerry Seinfeld immediately is like, what are we doing? And Louis C.K. is like, well, you don't really know Chris and I the way we know each other. I can say it with him. He gets it. We get it. And then Ricky Gervais starts laughing and he's like, oh, we have two different people in this room. We have two people who will say the N-word, but he says the N-word. And he's like, and then we have two people who won't say it. And Jerry's like, but you just said it, Ricky.
Right.
You just said it. And he like kind of calls all three of them out and is like, look, you guys have found the comedy in this word. I haven't found the comedy in it. Frankly, I'm not looking for it and I don't want to find it.
This was pre Louis C.K.
Oh yeah. This
Yes.
is like
Is this
10,
the one with,
15
wasn't
year
Bill
quote.
Hader in there too?
He
Is that what
might
I'm
be
thinking of?
later. There was just them
Or like
four.
he like moderate. I think I know what you're talking about, and I feel
It was like a sit down with the four of them.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
definitely think I've seen that, and like there is a point where I feel like the N-word's a great example of oh, my friend says I can do it, whatever, and it's like, hun, your friend is not comfortable with that. Like,
No.
They're just making it easy.
Right, so they're making it easy so they don't want to get into an argument with you. But I also think that if your friend is sort of leaving you out there to dry, because if you say that word around the wrong company who is not your friend, it's not going to go well for you. And that's sort of where the comedy comes in, because you're saying that like with the two of them, but if you're saying this now where people are videotaping this and can see it, you're no longer in the company of just the two of you. You're now saying this publicly. That doesn't fly with the majority of the audience.
Chris Rock said it's okay. Does not mean it's okay.
Right.
Yeah. Wait, he doesn't represent every single black person? Oh, no? Anyways, this all brings us back to WandaVision. The rest of the 2010s is like, it's kind of boring, really. We're transitioning over to streaming. Modern Family has proven there's still an audience for these shows. You get some ratings. For some reason, Chuck Lorre is running the world. Big Bang Theory is huge.
Two Broke Girls comes in there.
2.5 Men.
Yeah, Two Broke Girls comes in there.
CBS, why was CBS, like all of those shows, my God, why was CBS
I watch a good deal of CBS Two Broke Girls, but I hate their comedies. They're all one note. It's like a very specific style to them. Yeah.
Like, you know me, I love Kat Dennings so much. And even I have not seen an episode of Two Broke Girls because it's just not, I mean, I've seen a lot of Big Bang Theory because of family, and it's just, I don't know, like I'll never, it's what I've said to my mother is it's comedy for people who don't understand comedy, which offends her deeply, but it's kind of true.
But it plays to a lower, like it's punching down. Those shows all on CBS are like literally all punching down, and I actively stopped liking comedies like that, and I stopped liking comedies that were forcing me when I need to laugh. I don't watch really any more laugh track shows.
And this was the death of that in a lot of ways. Shows that had laugh tracks started to feel old out of the gate to newer audiences.
Yeah.
If you did that, so this brings us back to WandaVision. Using all of these tropes, we're not punching down at all. None of the comedy has been bad. We haven't made fun of anybody in the show because I think Marvel's, who also has their share of problems, is smarter now than before.
They did start 10 plus years ago, so.
Well, look, that original Iron Man,
that Iron Man 1 and 2, man, there's some stuff in there, you're like, whoa.
Yeah, it's a little like, post 9/11 racism is there for sure.
Oh, yeah. So now it's interesting using these shows and this decade. We didn't talk about happy endings at all. I'm pretty sure they did the intro.
I really want to talk about that intro. So you just brought it up, so I'm going to sneak in there.
Great.
I was really excited to see what they were going to do for the intro. What I wanted was a New Girl intro because I wanted to see Elizabeth Olsen singing about herself. But what I expected was Community because of the Russo brothers, and that's an easy one to emulate. The what do you call those kids thing?
Fortune tellers.
Those like fortune teller things near your kid. That's what the Community. Yeah. I really expected
this is
that.
The hand gesture for them.
Yes, and I was pleasantly surprised that they went happy endings because that is also a show that the Russo brothers produced. They weren't as involved as Community, I don't believe, but it was still something that they had a hand in. So I felt like it was still the nod I was expecting, but in a different way. And I think it was a great choice because happy ending is very niche, and it was cut off before its prime. It only got 3 seasons, but the funny thing about
it does have a New Girls connection.
I know Wayne's is
Junior, he filmed the pilot of New Girl, but then found out that Happy Endings got picked up, so we had to leave New Girl. But then after Happy Endings got canceled after 3 seasons, he went back to New Girl, which good for him. Like, do what you can. But so at first I was like, I don't know. I didn't know what the show was that they were doing. I didn't know what those signs were because I've never seen Happy Endings because of the 6 main cast members, there's one person of those 6 that I cannot stand. I don't think they're funny. I've always disliked them, and I'm not going to name them because they've never done anything bad. It's just a personal, mean opinion that I have. And so I never watched it. And I did watch the first 4 episodes this week, and it is good. It's very much a modern day Friends. The pilot literally starts with a runaway bride and 6 friends. It's literally the same kind of thing. And I can see why people are upset that it got canceled after after only 3 seasons, and it is a bummer. But I really respect WandaVision's choice to pick a show that didn't get to last, that doesn't live in the 11
Aren't-
seasons in the
Well,
history.
it almost matches thematically. This
aren't the
is not gonna
showrunners-
last.
Yeah.
Aren't the showrunners for this attached, and weren't they in some way attached to Happy Endings? I feel like that's also how this
The
show
Russo brothers are around, so
Got it.
there's another,
Hmm.
which also like let's get some Arrested Development in there. That stair car was in Civil War.
I think it was also smart to use the Happy Endings when just the way that opening works. You couldn't really use Modern Family because the fact like Vision's off, like he's not a part. Like the way that the story is taking place, it's just Wanda. So you almost have to do just solo Wanda stuff.
You've
at that
got
point.
one. Did you catch the "I know what you're doing" Wanda? The one
Yes.
that slipped in.
Yeah,
So he's there.
yeah. It's just it was a smart way to do that without kind of you can't use the Modern Family one.
I'm still sad I didn't get a New Girl song, but I do. But the music kind of sounded officey, which was cool. Like it was a good combo. Like I
That
like
was
how
what
some
was
of
interesting.
them-
It was like a Office sound with the Happy Endings visuals, which was like, oh, that's cool.
It kind of like how the Growing Pains Family Ties combo with like a sprinkle of Full House. I like that some of them, like this week, oh, that's Malcolm in the Middle, but one week is a little bit of a combo.
Yeah.
And I respect that. I really, WandaVision is, from a sitcom perspective, I mean, as a Marvel fan, I'm like, every second of this is amazing and I love it. And as a sitcom fan, though, I'm really like digging in and having lots of feelings, and I really respect that they did their research. Like they really went all types of sitcoms and family sitcoms, I should say. But even, I mean, you know, everyone's talking about how the moment where like Vision looks at the camera, like that's such a Jim Halpert moment. But that's a mockumentary. I hate to say it, folks, but The Office did not invent mockumentary.
Well, you know, it's the American Office has gotten so big that people don't even give respect to the British Office.
Which is so good. And I mean, I cannot stress enough how much I love the American Office. I love it so much, but it's still like,
oh, I'm
there's such a mockumentary history that is ripe.
The Office is up there with like, it's not a great one-to-one example, but it's up there with The Last Jedi and things that I'm just tired of talking about. I love The Office and I love The Last Jedi.
You know, I love me some Last Jedi.
And everyone has opinions about it, and I've heard all of them. And when people now are like, "So do you like The Office?" I'm like, "Yeah, yes, we can."
Yeah,
yes,
of course I do.
Let's all move on. It's fine. Some people, and now we're starting to see that pendulum swing where people are like, well, you know, Randall Park was around. He wasn't just Jim's prank. Like, people are starting to be like, was this show that good? Michael was bad and Jim's a bad character. And I'm like,
yeah,
you really know that your show is successful when half the internet every other day has to be like, I have opinions.
That's become Friends too, to the point where
Seinfeld, it's like, oh guys.
Friends was my favorite show from age 8 to 23. It was my number one favorite show. And I've been rewatching some of it and I still love it. It makes me laugh. That show is this joke ratio on that show is
it's unmatched. Except for by Seinfeld,
like,
which is a better show.
But Friends, there's no show that can compete with Friends in terms of pumping out jokes. And yeah, a lot of that show doesn't age well either, especially for us queers. But it is funny when like a show like even Parks lately, because of Chris Pratt, has been getting a little more criticism. But The Office and Friends, especially, like there was like an internet turn where there's a bit of like people are like, liking The Office isn't a personality trait, which true.
We know that people just like it. Calm down.
Yeah.
I've never met any. That's not true. I've met one person who very much was like, I am Jim and she is Pam, and that was bad.
Yeah.
But most people I know are never like, hello, my name is Blake. Here are some personalities about me. Also The Simpsons and Seinfeld and The Office. Like that. That's never been a thing.
I will say,
again, neither is your astrology sign. So if you're going to come at me for my shows, then guess what else isn't a person?
Oh, Blake, if you want to rip on astrology, I'm your girl. You know
Mercury
how hard
just
it is
got
being
out
a
of
queer woman who
retrograde. Let's
doesn't
do
care
it.
about astrology? Like, I don't care. But I will. I'm on Tinder a lot just because I'm bored. And
That's
I
why
will
most
say
people
though,
are on Tinder.
when somebody has like The Office in their profile, which is kind of common. It
all
is
the
like
time.
it's like, okay, you guys, we all like The Office. Like, this is a basic bitch move.
It's
Well,
I
I don't want.
will go ahead and wear this flag. I am one of those few people, and I won't go at anybody who does. I don't like The Office. I've seen probably 3 episodes, I think, of America.
Ooh,
I do
okay.
love the UK Office. Like I love
Yes,
the UK
that's
Office.
acceptable.
But I just never really got into. But I also that was sort of during my phase where any shows. That's why I also haven't watched Friends. Probably but a couple episodes for Seinfeld. I've seen a few episodes, but that was also my phase where if I didn't have that much representation that looked like me on the screen, I wasn't watching it.
Good for you.
This
'Cause,
makes
like,
sense
what's
to me.
wrong with like, yeah,
Yeah.
shows shouldn't be that way. It's like too much.
So then the other part about WandaVision that I think will be more next week, because I don't want to do a 2-hour episode. Obviously, we have the Agatha reveal. We've got this Agatha song. We're now in the Munsters. We're now in this counterculture. I don't know what's going to happen next, both from a Marvel storytelling perspective and a sitcom perspective, because my fear was we were going to get the big, whatever this Luke Skywalker type character is going to show up, and the next 2 episodes were just going to be a Marvel movie. I now don't believe that that's the case, but I am now like, I could be anything. We know the Darkholm's hanging out in there. We don't know where the kids are. Pietro's up to some nonsense. We had a post-credit scene. That's the one thing we didn't talk about. Welcome to the age that I actually started to hate in sitcoms, where the credits are finishing the story for you. And I hated it because shows started really doing their like tying it up with credits at the bottom. But I was like, let me have my feelings and then show me the people who made the show.
So
now put a weird like defuse the bomb type situation.
Why it gets really sucky is when you watch these shows via DVR and the shows record up until a certain point and they cut off the last button or last joke of whatever they decided to put in the post-credit sequence. I'm like, you son of a bitch, just put it all where it's supposed to be.
Similarly on streaming services, because when it hits the credits, it
shrinks down, yeah,
and gets you ready for the next episode. But in some sitcoms, it's like you're making me miss the joke, the final joke. Right. That's very common on like Hulu and stuff, and it's annoying.
Yeah.
But we got our first post-credit scene, which I also was like, now we're in the age of Marvel. Like that was such a smart way. It's a little kind of a bummer. And I think everyone's waiting through the credits because they're gorgeous. And I think we're all it's midnight and everyone's tired and they want to make their Age of Ultron jokes that we've had to do for the last 8 weeks.
We get it, you guys. Age of Ultron's the next show. Don't have to keep
That's what they're popping up, guys.
Yeah. We don't. Yeah. I'd rather be spoiled on the next episode at 9 a.m. than see another Ultron joke.
But it's funny how many people, like I was watching a couple of like reaction to this episode, and how many stopped watching once the original content over. Like we had reprogrammed them to stop watching post credits now. And I was like, oh, that's weird. So
the first thing I tweeted, we're in the 2010s, expect the post-credit scene. We're now in Marvel's worlds. Disney is, if there's one weird thing about the 10s, it's Disney's world now.
It is. Yeah.
And I'm sure I brought this up in the past, but I mean, as the biggest Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. fan, that's something they did, and every single episode had like it wasn't really a post credit, but it was technically a post credit, and it was awesome every time.
Yeah.
And but one sitcom that I actually really wish the 2010s WandaVision would have done this. One of my favorite bits is the way that Arrested Development would do like a next time on, but it wasn't really the next time. Like it was just like a joke that like kind of alluded to what was going to happen next week. And I kind of wish that WandaVision's first post credit would have been kind of like that, if Ron Howard's voice would have showed up and be like, next time on
just
WandaVision.
Anybody's that could have been anybody cameoing and just doing like next time on Wanda. It could have been one of the Russo brothers. What are they doing? They can hop in a VO booth. And
they're currently promoting Cherry.
I said Cherry, right? That's
what's
going on. Yeah.
Is that on Apple TV Plus? Everybody who bought an iPhone this year is going to be very excited to watch that.
Speaking of amazing current sitcoms, get Apple TV Plus just to watch Ted Lasso. That is the next in 10 years when we do a reunion of this podcast, like the
10 years, Jamie. You'll
2020
be with us next. We'll figure out what we're doing after.
We're not
Oh no,
letting
I
you
just
go.
mean this specific WandaVision one. Like obviously we're not going anywhere. But I feel like when in 10 years from now when we talk about this upcoming decade of comedy, I think that it's going to start with Ted Lasso.
That makes sense. The show's great. I'd love to see it in this one. I don't know what that show would be. Maybe
This actually is a good spot. Like I'm happy that I have no idea what the hell's about to happen.
I'm excited.
Well, we've now kind of caught up to the comics. We all know anybody who knew House of M, Vision, Avengers Disassembled, any other Wanda-centric story. We're now kind of at that climax. We now know the villain, at least one of them. My big theory is that Agatha is working with S.W.O.R.D. and that the big twist is going to be we wanted to bring back Vision. We couldn't figure it out. Wanda came in and got him, and now Agatha's going to mess it up, and we're going to make her the villain, and we're going to get our sentient robot back.
I mean, Agatha's not a villain in the comics, so I'm really interested.
No,
to see...
she plays more of a mentor role.
She's a mentor, but I also love the if they do change it and keep her a villain, I'm like, yes, Catherine Hahn villain, give it to me, girl. But
she is having a ball.
God dang it, give her and Elizabeth and even Paul, they all deserve it.
Yeah.
But Catherine Hahn, I'm just so excited to see the internet gush over her because I've been a Catherine Hahn fan for a very long time.
I've bookmarked her HBO show on my HBO Max.
Mrs. Fletcher, let me tell you, that's some sexy stuff.
I've heard.
It's really sexy. She's sexy. But I'm just but weirdly, like Twitter's been very gatekeepy this week. Like, oh well, I've loved Catherine Hahn forever.
Oh yeah,
like,
we're now doing
and that's.
She's
great.
a prominent actress. A lot of people have been a fan of hers for a long time. Liking Catherine Hahn is not a personality trait.
Full circle. And it's like, you should be excited that the whole internet's obsessed with Catherine Hahn right now. I'm excited. I'm excited that people are finally realizing what an amazing actor Elizabeth Olsen is. I'm so happy.
One thing that everybody will always do, it is... I saw the band first. I remember when Yellow Card was in a barn in Illinois. And
I was with Gambino back in the day when we were doing camp.
Back when you were doing camp. Get on I Am Just a Rapper and I Am Donald tour. Come at me. Come into my house when he opened for himself. I was there. We've done it with nerd culture. We've done it with pop culture. Unfortunately, we're going to keep doing it as much as I don't think people want to. Gatekeeping sucks. The more people that like your hobby. But look, I was young once. I remember when video games got popular and I was selling video games to the people who made fun of me for playing video games. And I was pissed. I remember being like, now you want to come in here and buy Madden and Call of Duty? You were punching me in the face for playing Zelda 2 weeks ago, sir.
I hope that was just an over dramatization and no one actually hit you.
It wasn't in the face.
Oh no, Blake.
I think that's our show. We're coming up on an hour.
On that note,
like the 2010s, we're gonna end depressingly.
No, it is a decade that ended pretty bleak.
Ooh, I mean,
oh yeah,
really.
I mean, Jesus, you guys.
Obviously you're already here, so subscribe and leave us a review. If you have been listening, if you are new to the show, if you are new to Terrence and I, if you are somebody Jamie has brought in, leave us a review. It is the most helpful thing you can do until we're monetized. Do it. Share it with a friend. Help us. If you've made it to this If you've made it this far, you're the person we're looking for this show.
We love you.
People left 20 minutes ago. They didn't want to hear about They just want the reactions. No shade to people who do reactions. I know that I'm starting to feel like I make that bit and it sounds bad. It's not.
Like I'm one of them.
Terrence does them all the time. You can watch them on the Hollywood Already Did It YouTube channel, where Terrence does our reviews for other movies. He does full reviews for the episodes. He does trailer reactions, Mortal Kombat, Godzilla. I don't know what else is coming out. You can listen to me talk about toys on the How Do You Figure podcast. You can listen to Terrence and I talk about other movies that you might not be able to do anymore and you can't do that podcast. You can listen to Jamie on Phase Zero on thecomicbook.com. You can read the rest of her work there and at BuzzFeed.com. And I believe that is everything on social. I am at, as always, Blake. Terrence is at Terrence Tatum, and Jamie is at Jamie Cinematics. And you'll find the show. You know it. It's fine.
Later.
Amazing. Oh, that's perfect. This episode of WandaVision had a post-credit scene, so our episode of our podcast needs to have a post-credit scene.
And I'm going to include what you just said on it because I have already hit record. If you've stuck around this long, amazing. You're one of 20% of our audience, and you will be rewarded. Because we forgot to talk about, and by forgot, I mean this was an intentional decision to do a post-credit scene, and not at all something we just realized. Welcome to it. I Am Iron Man has happened. Nick Fury is somewhere in the background, and you think those were the only commercials in WandaVision? Guys, we had a great commercial this episode. Take it away.
Yeah, I was sitting here before that commercial aired. Like, the best way to do a commercial in 2000s is do these commercials where we talk about like giving you a pill, and we literally just list off a bunch of diseases that it causes you if you actually take this. And I was like, and when they did it, I was like, oh my god, that is fucking perfect. That's what I wanted to a T.
It really felt like, I mean, in this day and age, I don't watch commercials that much anymore. I'm sure you guys don't either. But the depression pill commercials, wow, what a staple. And you know, when you think about it, very messed up. What an insane society we live in. I mean, truly. We have these commercials where this woman is just like depressed and there's no, I mean, these commercials, there's no nuance to them. There's nothing that makes me like want to buy this depression pill. It's like they're, and it's like, what a hard thing to advertise. It's such a bizarre
you're so
concept.
depressed, come get Nexus and you will be happy, or at least drugged enough that it won't matter.
Well, and I think
also,
this one,
you might be more depressed. That could be a side effect.
That was a great joke. More depression. Yeah. I felt that was very indicative of like middle-aged to older millennial humor of like everyone makes mental health jokes, whether or not that's okay, and we should be doing it as a different conversation. But that's definitely a thing. These pill ads that are everywhere that I can never tell if they're real or an SNL joke.
I always feel like they're a skit. Yeah.
There is something deeply funny about them in like a very dark way. Because they're meant to be serious, but it's just, I mean, I don't know. I don't know if anyone who is in desperate need of a Nexus pill sees that commercial and are like, I feel seen. That lady with a dark cloud hanging over it. And sometimes they're like animated.
Oh yeah, the little bubble that bounced. That was like a very 90s, like, and he's sad. We live in such a messed up society, you guys. I mean, truly, we're Jamie out here quoting the Snyder Cut.
Oh, how dare you! You cut that from this show right now. I need you to remove that. I'm offended. I'm offended deeply. This post credit was a mistake.
It's staying in now. The reaction was funnier than the joke.
Oh, that's awesome.
This also showed us where Wanda is. I feel like all of these commercials have kind of been indicative of where she is, and now she's just sad.
She's sad, depressed, and Nexus, typically in Marvel form, that's a little play of like all these realities sort of converging in on one spot. So if that is still part of that, we sort of know why we're talking about this eventually leads off to Doctor Strange.
Well, in the comics, her and Vision are both considered Nexus level villains. These are characters that have hex magic and abilities. There's the Nexus of all realities. We're getting into some deep lore here, but it was a great commercial.
One thing about depressed Wanda that is like so true, and I don't know, this was the most relatable I've ever found Wanda. I tweeted this, but I meant it. Like Wanda waking up full of regret in her Halloween costume. Like she's like, I'm having a quarantine staycation. I literally did that this week. I took off work and had a quarantine staycation.
I think everyone has been in that situation where they flip off the covers and they're like, like, shit, I am still wearing the exact same thing I was
that
last
happened to
night.
me on my 21st birthday.
Now,
Took out
this
my
was
contacts.
many years ago, and I'm going to regret telling the story on here. I was interning at a private party at the Drake Hotel. This was so long ago. And cut to me waking up on my couch the next day, completely pantless, and I never saw that cell phone again. I don't know what happened to my cell phone. I don't know what happened to my pants. But I was on my couch, and I was grateful my roommate did not walk in and see me pant. I was like Winnie the Pooh in it. And so I feel you, Wanda. I get that. I get the
We've all been there.
You dress up for a costume party, and the next thing you know,
in your bed.
or the couch.
Kids are trying to wake you up. You're like, nope, not today, kids.
Mm-hmm. That was also yeah. I'd imagine, I don't know, I don't want kids, I don't have kids, but the idea of like sometimes, wow, yeah, what do you do when we all have those days where we don't want to get out of bed? I assume I do. And to like also, but like you have children to take care of.
I think that's the sacrifices parents talk about. I think they suck it up and they do it.
And pop all the Nexus pills, all of
them. I think that's it, guys.
That's our postcard. Maybe don't talk about the pantless story, or keep it in, Blake. I don't care.
We'll see. I have to. This is going to be uploaded in like 12 hours. My edit time is very tight.
Keep it. Just keep it. Even though I know Margie's listening, it's fine.
All right. I think that's that.